The spiritual journey leading to enlightenment is an inner quest or exploration that's known as self-inquiry, a search to discover the nature of your true self, the inner divinity, atma. For that journey, the roadmap, so to speak, is the wisdom of the rishis, the sages of ancient India. By following their teachings, you can figuratively walk in their footsteps and eventually discover what they discovered so long ago. In India, this spiritual journey is often compared to a yatra, a pilgrimage to a holy place. To go on a yatra generally involves an arduous trek of many miles, often climbing steep trails in the mighty Himalayas. The goal of such yatras is usually to reach a sacred temple and receive darshan, that is, to stand in the deity's presence and obtain blessings. The temple metaphorically represents your body and mind, and the deity within it represents your true self, atma. The strenuous journey to reach the temple represents the demanding spiritual practices needed to prepare you to discover the divinity within. My first yatra, or pilgrimage, was in 1986, on my very first visit to India. I arrived at a town called Gaurikund, which is the beginning point for the trek to Kedarnath, a temple of Lord Shiva in a high valley on Mount Kedarnath, which stands nearly 7,000 meters tall. My trek was just 10 miles long, but the path was very rough and extremely steep. At one point, I came across a wooden sign that said in Hindi, "Sabse chota rasta hai." This is the shortest route, a shortcut. But that sign pointed straight up the mountainside where there were no paths to follow. Had I taken that shortcut, I might have gotten lost, or I might even have slipped and fallen. Taking that shortcut could have prevented me from reaching my goal. And the same is true for taking shortcuts on the journey to enlightenment. Most Hindus believe that the effort and exertion of a long yatra purifies your mind and heart, preparing you to receive abundant blessings when you reach the temple. For this reason, the arduous journey is considered to be just as important as entering the temple. I was surprised to learn that nowadays you can fly by helicopter directly to the Kedarnath temple. For just 5,000 rupees, about $60, you can skip the difficult climb and arrive there in comfort. But the problem with flying by helicopter is your mind and heart will not be purified by undergoing the long trek. Some people humorously suggest that the helicopter pilot will receive all the blessings instead of you. The point is, the journey of enlightenment will not be fruitful without appropriate spiritual practice. And that practice requires effort. Lots of effort is required to build a career, or buy a house, or raise a family. And it's reasonable to assume that enlightenment would require as much or even more effort. Yet some people seem to believe that little or no effort is needed if you take advantage of certain spiritual shortcuts. For example, here on YouTube, you'll find many videos that promote various shortcuts to enlightenment. Those videos have catchy titles like The Fastest Path to Spiritual Enlightenment, and How to Become Enlightened in 48 Minutes. And here's my favorite, 3 Hacks to Induce a Spiritual Awakening. A hack, if you don't know, is a shortcut used by computer programmers. I won't mention the authors of those videos, but you might already know of a self-proclaimed guru or spiritual master who claims to have found a way to completely bypass the lengthy process of becoming enlightened through diligent spiritual practice. Some claim to have a special mantra or meditation technique that confers immediate enlightenment. Others claim to offer a powerful direct transmission of energy from teacher to student that can enlighten you instantly and effortlessly. The problem with all these alleged shortcuts is that enlightenment is impossible unless you are ready, fully prepared. No matter how powerful a mantra or meditation technique might be, unless you are ready, that technique will not be effective. We all know the importance of preparation. In college, you had to fulfill certain prerequisites before taking advanced courses. To become fully prepared in fields like medicine, law, and science, many years of study and internship are required. Would you want to be treated by a doctor who took some kind of shortcut to get licensed to practice medicine? Now, it's absolutely true that some great saints did indeed gain enlightenment without years of preparation. Sri Ramana Maharshi is perhaps a good example of that. He became enlightened when still in his teens. But he was an extraordinary person, a child prodigy or spiritual genius. Somehow, Ramana Maharshi was naturally endowed with all the qualities needed to be fully prepared for enlightenment. If you happen to be endowed with those same qualities, then maybe you too can get enlightened just as quickly as he did. So, if the need for preparation is a matter of common sense, then why is it neglected by so many seekers and even by some spiritual masters? Well, it's often been said that we live at a time of instant gratification. We're accustomed to fast food restaurants, microwave ovens, ATM machines, and instant messaging. Many complain if they have to stand in a queue for more than a few minutes. Such people who lack patience might not be willing to perform preliminary spiritual practices. And instead, they might look for some kind of shortcut. In most teaching traditions, including Advaita Vedanta, tremendous emphasis is given to preparatory practices like prayer, worship, meditation, and karma yoga. Many scriptures and texts are directed not so much towards lofty spiritual truths, but rather on the spiritual practices needed to understand them. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, those truths are expounded in chapter 2. Yet, 16 more chapters follow, most of which are focused on karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and meditation, practices meant to prepare you to grasp those lofty spiritual truths. To gain enlightenment, preparation is crucial. If you are fully prepared, then even the highest teachings can quickly be understood. But if you're not prepared, those teachings will forever remain beyond your grasp, regardless of your intelligence and sincerity. Now, in addition to the problem of impatience, there's another, more insidious problem that can deter sincere seekers from undertaking all the spiritual practice needed to become fully prepared for enlightenment. This problem is found in a modern teaching known as Neo-Advaita, which has become quite popular in recent years. Its central teachings are the same as those of traditional Advaita Vedanta. But Neo-Advaita completely dismisses the need to become fully prepared through spiritual practice. Its teachers often say, "You already are the true self, atma. You already are limitless, full, and complete. So, you don't need meditation or other practices. You simply have to realize that truth." The approach of Neo-Advaita not only neglects the need for preparation, but it also neglects the unique methodology used in traditional Advaita Vedanta. That methodology can lead you step by step to overcome identification with your body and mind and discover your true nature. Its method is like a series of stepping stones used to cross a stream. The method of Neo-Advaita is more like trying to jump across the stream in a single leap. Here's the problem. Followers of Neo-Advaita who are still strongly identified with their bodies and minds are told again and again, your true nature is already limitless, full, and complete. But as long as that identification remains, merely telling them their true nature is limitless will not lead to direct realization of atma. At best, this approach might lead followers to believe or accept such teachings. As a result, instead of personally discovering their true nature to be limitless, full, and complete, they simply believe it. And such a belief is but a faint shadow of actual self-realization. To understand how this problem arose, we have to examine the origins of Neo-Advaita. Most scholars agree that Neo-Advaita has its roots in the wonderful and profound teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. As we saw before, Ramana was one of those rare spiritual geniuses who didn't need to perform conventional spiritual practices. Because he was so young when he attained enlightenment, he didn't have an opportunity to study Vedantic scriptures in the traditional way. He never called himself a guru. He simply taught whoever came to his ashram. One of those visitors was H.W.L. Punja, who later became a popular teacher of young American and European seekers who fondly addressed him as Papaji. Like Ramana, Papaji never engaged in traditional Vedantic studies. As a result, he didn't understand or use the unique methodology of Advaita Vedanta used by Shankaracharya and others. So, his Western students failed to receive many important non-dual teachings. It was those students who went on to popularize the teachings we now know as Neo-Advaita. The problem is, teaching Tat Twamasi, the highest teaching of Advaita Vedanta, without its traditional methodology, is like teaching Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, without knowing basic math and physics. There's one more harmful spiritual shortcut to consider here. If you are fully prepared through spiritual practice, you can indeed become enlightened by using Vedanta's powerful method of self-inquiry. You can realize your true nature as pure, limitless consciousness, atma. Even though you might need years of practice to become fully prepared, that realization takes place instantaneously. A traditional metaphor says that cleaning the dirt from a mirror takes time, but seeing your own reflection takes but a moment. Yet, even after you realize your true nature, a particular problem can arise if you wrongly assume that enlightenment will instantly make your life picture perfect and solve all your problems. You probably remember the story of the wise master who told his young disciple, "Before becoming enlightened, I chopped wood and carried water. And now I still chop wood and carry water." The challenges and difficulties of life continue after enlightenment. Yet the wise master in that story no longer complains about them. He accepts the burdens of life with perfect equanimity. It's unrealistic to expect that enlightenment will instantly transform your life, making it perfectly serene and tranquil. But many people fail to understand that it's equally unrealistic to expect that enlightenment will instantly transform your mind, making your mind perfectly serene and tranquil. How can that be so? Because of the mind's deeply habitual nature. Let me explain with this wonderful story. A little lion cub was walking through the forest with its mother and became fascinated by a butterfly. It didn't realize that its mother had walked on and became separated from her. It spent the night in the dark forest, alone and frightened. In the morning, it saw some sheep in a nearby clearing and sought refuge with the flock. The sheep felt sorry for the lost little cub and accepted it as one of their own. The cub grew up with the sheep and grazed in the grass with them, wrongly believing that it was a sheep, not a lion. One day, another lion, passing nearby, saw this lion standing in a flock of sheep and came to investigate. Seeing that lion, they all got frightened and ran off. The lion chased after the grown cub and cornered it at the edge of a pond. It was terribly afraid and begged for its life, thinking it would be devoured. But the passerby lion said, "Why would I eat you? You're a lion just like me. Look at your reflection in the pond. Do you see a sheep or a lion?" The grown cub looked in the pond and instantly realized that it really was a lion. In this story, The lost lion's realization is obviously a metaphor for enlightenment, the realization that you really are limitless consciousness, atma, not your body and mind. But there's more to this story. The next morning, the newly enlightened lion woke up in the forest and saw the flock it had grown up with in a clearing. Out of habit, it joined the flock, which still accepted it as one of their own. If you could ask that lion, "Are you a lion or a sheep?" it would admit that it's really a lion, and probably be tremendously embarrassed about continuing to graze in the grass with the sheep. Such is the power of habit. Now, look at this. When the lost lion saw its reflection in the pond, it immediately recognized its true nature as a lion. But that recognition had not yet been fully assimilated. The lion had grown up thinking itself to be a sheep, and that false identity had become deeply ingrained in its thinking. To remove this habitual false identification, the lion should begin each day by looking at its reflection in the pond. The lion won't see anything new, but seeing itself as a lion again and again will gradually remove any lingering false identification. In this way, the lion's realization can become fully assimilated. This story shows that even after you realize your true self as atma, habitual thinking can lead you to continue identifying with your body and mind. That lingering identification can make you subject to suffering and prevent you from fully appreciating your essential fullness and limitlessness. To remove that habitual identification, a process of assimilation is required. Once again, some spiritual geniuses like Ramana Maharshi might not have needed to undergo that process. But for most people, to skip that process of assimilation is a spiritual shortcut that can deprive you of inner freedom and perfect contentment. That's why traditional teachers of Advaita Vedanta emphasize the practice of nididhyasana, Vedantic contemplation. Nididhyasana is like the lost lion looking at its reflection in the pond again and again to remove habitual identification. The practice of nididhyasana is a huge topic that we can't discuss here, but basically it's to contemplate or reflect on your true nature. Figuratively speaking, nididhyasana is to see your true self reflected in the word mirror of Vedanta. To remove habitual identification through this practice can take months and years, or in my case, decades. Before we conclude, consider this. The spiritual journey that leads to enlightenment has 3 main stages. The first is preparation. To become fully prepared for enlightenment, proper spiritual practice is needed. The second stage is personal realization of your true nature as limitless consciousness, atma. And the third stage is assimilation, the process of removing habitual identification with your body and mind. Note that the first and third stages take time to accomplish. whereas self-realization is instantaneous. So, the spiritual journey can be described as a long process of preparation, followed by instantaneous realization, followed by a long process of assimilation. Fortunately, the final stage of assimilation is not at all arduous. Each time the lost lion sees its reflection in the pond, it's happy with what it sees. And each time you see your true nature reflected in the word mirror of Vedanta, you will joyfully appreciate your innate fullness and completeness.